Hello and welcome everyone to our weekly session titled Latest in Bitcoin Tech, where we go through the Bitcoin Optech newsletter, which is published weekly. And this week we will go through the newsletter number 348, published on 4th of April 2025. We'll first go through the preface and then we will read through the newsletter and see what its contents are and how we will tackle with it this week. So the preface says this week's newsletter links to an educational implementation of elliptic curve cryptography for Bitcoin's SEC P256K1 curve. Also included are our regular sections with descriptions of discussions about changing consensus, announcements of new releases and release candidates, and summaries of notable changes to popular Bitcoin infrastructure software. So as every week, we have the news section, which comprises only of one news article. And other than that, we have this newly induced changing consensus section that I believe has been introduced around a month ago, maybe a couple of months ago. I believe this is a monthly feature. So I think I'm going through this for the third time. Yeah, it's a monthly feature where proposals pertaining to changing consensus rules, whether it be via soft forks or via proposed hard forks, are discussed. So we'll go through it. And then what else do we have? Pretty lengthy. After that, we have the weekly featuring releases and release candidates, and we have the notable code and documentation changes. Now, primarily, this week's newsletter comprises of the consensus change proposals, and I was just going through the newsletter. Uh, it's I mean it's more an open-ended newsletter where people can discuss. There's not a lot in the newsletter where the host can come and rant about. It's more about open-ended questions and arbitrary topics. So it's not a very uh, kind of a very stereotypical or a very mechanical newsletter where you can just read through the newsletter and elaborate on it. Because firstly, it's very expansive and large. Also, it comprises opinions of people on multiple subjects. So I think the more appropriate approach this week would be to just scour through what the newsletter is and share our opinions of what we know about the proposals that have been made this week. Let's see what we can deduce out of the changing consensus section. Before that, we'll go through the first bullet point, that being the news article. So the title says Educational and Experimental Based SEC P256K1 Implementation. Sebastian Falbesoner, Jonas, Nick, and Tim Ruffing posted to the Bitcoin dev mailing list to announce the Python implementation of various functions related to the cryptography used in Bitcoin. They warned that the implementation is insecure, caps in original, and intended for prototyping, experimentation, and education. They also note that a reference and test code for several BIPs such as 340, 324, 327, and 352 already includes custom and sometimes subtly diverging implementations of SEC P256K1. They hope to improve this situation going forward, perhaps starting with an upcoming BIP for Chill DKG, see newsletter 312. We all know, or I'm assuming most of us know what SEC P256K1 is, right? Basically, there is a library that is incorporated in a Bitcoin code for performing uh, arithmetic operations that are specific to the SEC P256K1 curve, which is used in Bitcoin for various purposes, such as deducing public keys out of private keys, creating digital signatures, so on and so forth. And this week's news article basically mentions that a Python implementation, okay, the one that is currently used, I believe, is in C++, the one that Bitcoin Core incorporates is in C++. So a Python implementation of that library has been created by a group of developers, which they warn that the implementation is insecure. I believe it's not tested rigorously and intended for prototyping, experimentation, and education. They also know that the reference and test code for several BIPs already includes custom and sometimes subtly diverging implementations of SEC P256K1. They hope to improve the situation going forward, perhaps starting with an upcoming BIP for Chill DKG. So not much to dig into this news article other than the fact that a Python implementation of the SEC P256K1 library has been created for the purpose of prototyping, experimentation, and education. The disclaimer says that it's insecure yet, and the people using this specific library or Python implementation must be aware of the fact that it's insecure and should not use it directly in production. Let's see what the post is. If it's not very lengthy and massive, we can just read through the post quickly before we move forward. It is not at all lengthy. Hello list. We're pleased to announce the initial release of SEC P256K1 Labs. That's what they're calling it, lab. An insecure implementation of the SEC P256K1 elliptic curve and related cryptographic schemes written in Python, intended for prototyping, experimentation, and education. Features: low-level SEC P256K1 field and group arithmetic. So these are some of the features of that library, the Python implementation of SEC P256K1 library. Low-level SecP256K1 field and group arithmetic, Schnorr signing verification, and key generation according to BIP 340, ECDH. This is elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman key exchange. We developed SecP256K1 lab as a part of our work on the Chill DKG work in progress BIP 0. We've also covered Chill DKG back in newsletter 312 a few months ago, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. It is based on the SecP256K1 implementation in the Bitcoin core test framework. Our goal was to avoid including yet another custom Python implementation of the SecP256K1 curve in the chill DKG reference code. Several existing BIPs 340, 324, 327, and 352 already contain custom and sometimes subtly diverging implementations of SecP256K1. This library aims to provide a single consistent interface for SecP256K1 related cryptographic specifications. At the moment, Sec P256K1 lab is included in the chill DKG repository as a subtree. It remains an open question what would be the best approach for including chill DKG with the Sec P256K1 lab dependency into the BIPs repository. We welcome your feedback and contributions to this project. Best regards. All right, so that is all we had to cover for the first news article. The fact that a new Python implementation of the Sec P256K1 library has been developed by a group of developers who also happen to be working on a chill DKG. All right. Nothing more to share from the news section. If there are any questions, anything to share, anything to ask, anything to discuss, please feel free to unmute yourself and speak in the midst of the session. And feel free to interrupt me. Changing consensus. All right. Let's read through this. There's a lot. I'm in two minds on how to cover it. Should we read this in its entirety? It'll take a lot of time just to read it. We end up spending a lot of time just to read it. Okay, let's at least read the first section. It's not that big, so that we can discuss it further. We have Coding P, our quantum experts will give their opinions. All right. Multiple discussions about quantum computer threat and resistance. Several conversations examined how Bitcoiners could respond to quantum computers becoming powerful enough to allow stealing Bitcoins. Should vulnerable Bitcoins be destroyed? Jameson Lopp posted to the Bitcoin dev mailing list several arguments for the destruction of Bitcoins. Vulnerable to quantum theft after an upgrade path to quantum resistance has been adopted and users have had time to adopt the solution. Some arguments include, okay, so basically I'm sure most people have heard about what quantum computing is and how it's been discussed that quantum computers might be able to break the DLP, the discrete log problem, and thereby reverse engineer Bitcoin public keys and access people's private keys if the public keys are known and thereby steal Bitcoins. And what avenues or what measures can be and should be taken to prevent that from happening, right? Now, there are a lot of proposals about coming up with quantum resistant digital signature schemes, so on and so forth. And they will, if the threat is tangible, then there definitely will be measures taken to ensure that people can shift or move their coins to new addresses that are quantum resistant. And there might be a deadline to do that. But once that happens, okay, assuming that happens, assuming that the quantum threat is tangible, assuming that the quantum resistance path has been adopted, assuming that quantum resistant digital signatures have been adopted, After that, after the deadline, what is to be done to the coins that are still associated with addresses that are quantum vulnerable, like for instance P2PK, where the public key is known. If the public key is known, and if the quantum computers are able to break DLP, then every coin that is associated with a public key that is known is vulnerable, is quantum vulnerable, right? So after the quantum resistance path has been adopted, despite that, what is to be done with the coins that are still associated with quantum vulnerable addresses? What do you do with them, right? So Jameson Lopp posted to the Bitcoin Dev mailing list, right, giving his suggestions on how to tackle or what to do, what should be the fate of quantum vulnerable coins. Okay, so his arguments have been bifurcated from different avenues and dimensions. Uh, let's go through them one after the other. Argument for common preference. He believes most people would prefer that their funds be destroyed rather than stolen by someone with a fast quantum computer, especially, he argues, since the thief will be among the few privileged folks who gain early access to quantum computers, right? So if I mean, quantum, whenever there is an advent of a new technology, initially having access to that technology is only possible for a bunch of niche people, right? So when computers came, they did not become a household phenomenon overnight. It was only a niche group of people that had access to computers. Same with internet. Same with mobile phones and smartphones. So wherever there's an advent of a new technology, it's not accessible to people overnight. It's a gradual process when it becomes normalized. Initially, only a group of niche people have access to it, and quantum computers will be no different. So what if quantum computers are become advanced enough to break DLP, and a group of niche people have access to those quantum computers? And if those quantum computers are capable of reverse engineering Bitcoin public keys, then every single Bitcoin that is associated with a public key that's known is quantum vulnerable. What is to be done in that case, right? What is to be done in that case? Uh, one option could be letting people steal those coins, right? I mean, that's not even an option. Like that's beyond your control. If if somebody has access to a quantum computer that can break DLP, and you have not upgraded you have not upgraded to a quantum resistant path, either the entire network has not been able to upgrade to a quantum resistant path, or for some reason you haven't been able to, then that person obviously is in a position where they can steal your coin. So what would you prefer? Your coins to be stolen or your coins to be destroyed? So the argument given by Jameson Lopp is he believes most people would prefer their funds be destroyed rather than stolen by someone with a fast quantum computer, right? First, let's just discuss the point of view shared by Jameson Lopp here, and then we can agree with him or differ with him, right? So he believes that most people would prefer that their funds be destroyed rather than stolen by someone with a fast quantum computer. So if somebody has access to a quantum computer and your bitcoins are quantum vulnerable, so Jameson Lopp believes that most people would prefer that their coins be destroyed instead of their coins being in the possession of a thief. All right, so that's
Mm.
that first
Uh,
argument from common preference. Yeah, somebody's trying to speak. Yeah, sure.
yeah. My question is, as the article agrees, initially only a few privileged people will gain access to it, and if the objective is not to like destroy the economic value of Bitcoin, why would they announce that they have sort of broken a public key and then found the private key and then use that private key to spend that fund, let's say Satoshi's coin? Why would they announce? Like how Satoshi's coins are obvious, it has been documented, and even if there's a movement in it, everyone would come to know. But there are other pay to public key addresses that hold significant value. Why would they announce it? They can just transfer it to a quantum secure address type and then continue.
Right, that's true. true. If somebody steals, then they will obviously not announce that they've stolen. But the assumption is that we know that. I mean, even if somebody is not stolen, right? Let's not come to the inference that they are certainly stolen. If we are aware that there are quantum computers that are capable of breaking DLP, if it's proven that DLP has been broken by a quantum computer, then you don't wait for the coins to be actually stolen, right? You immediately upgrade to a quantum resistant path, and you immediately start discussing what do you do with these coins. So it's not necessary that firstly, it's not necessary that we are discussing in a situation that the coins are stolen, even if the potential of the coins being stolen. As of now, we know that DLP has not been broken. That is what our assumption is. But once it gets known that DLP has been broken, if somebody breaks DLP and announces it, that they have a quantum computer using which they have broken DLP, and that makes the coin susceptible, right? So even if the coins are not stolen, even in that situation, this assumption is even if the coins are not stolen, should we destroy them, right? So the assumption is even if the coins are not stolen, we should destroy them before the attackers get access to it, right? Because either you upgrade it, either you transfer them to a quantum resistant address, or we destroy them. Like we give them a deadline within which they upgrade immediately to a quantum resistant address, and if not, then we destroy their coins. That is what is the argument of Jameson Law, right? He is not, and not it's not only him; it's other people as well that I've heard. They are not leaving it to the will of owners of the coin, right? So it's not that they're not giving a choice. It is that a soft fork will be executed that will destroy all the coins, all the quantum vulnerable coins, right? So you execute a soft fork and you ask people, give them a deadline to transfer their coins to a quantum resistant address, and if they don't do it, then against their will and without your permission, you destroy all the coins that are quantum vulnerable and have not been upgraded to the quantum resistant addresses. Would you like to add something?
Yeah, I see the point. And
Great, thanks. And I am now going to watch in the chat. Can't get away. Pudding P. No, you have to. This is the no. I believe like me and Jatin were discussing. The nature of this week's newsletter is such that there is not a lot for the host to talk about, right? These are all discussion-oriented sessions. So, like I prefer engagement. So, yeah. Even if you can post in chat, like, okay, coding P, let me know in chat if you have a Bitcoin, okay, that is associated with a quantum vulnerable address. Like, what would you prefer? What would you prefer, it being destroyed, or like somebody stealing it? Would you be okay with somebody stealing it, or would you want to destroy it? It's not necessary that somebody will steal it, but there's a possibility, there's a potential of someone stealing it, right? So if given an option, what would you do? Would you be okay with your coins being stolen, or would you want them to be destroyed before they get stolen? Okay, all right. What is if I'm not upgrading, it's better to get stolen. I also agree with that. I mean, like destroying something out of the fear of it being stolen, it's I don't know, to me it's a very vague concept. Like, firstly, there is no guarantee that your specific coins are going to be stolen, right? So if I don't want to upgrade, if I don't want to transfer my coins to a quantum resistant address, it's my wish, right? It's my will. If somebody wants to steal and I don't want to upgrade, then let them steal it. I'm responsible. I'm taking responsibility, right? If I refuse to upgrade to a quantum resistant address and my coins get stolen, the onus is on me, right? The responsibility is on me. The burden is on me, right? I chose not to upgrade to a quantum resistant address and my coins got stolen. I'm responsible for it. I'm taking accountability for it, right? But somebody else, without my will, against my permission, destroying my bitcoins because I am not transferring it to a quantum resistant address, it's an absolutely vague concept to me. I mean, there are a lot of reputed people in the community that are saying that these coins should be described, but it comes across as a very vague argument to me. And Parker Lewis, who's somebody that I really respect, admire, and look up to, made a very nice post on Twitter giving his reasons as to why the coins should not be described, right? It's a person's prerogative. Like, you like, it's these are my coins, like I decide. You, like, others cannot decide how I secure my coins, right? Others cannot decide how you secure your house, or how you secure your gold, or how you secure your valuables. That is my possession. That's my valuable possession. I decide how I secure it. If I don't take adequate security measures and my coin gets stolen, then the onus is on me. I take responsibility. But because as per you, I'm not taking adequate measures to secure my coin, you forcefully destroying my coin is something that I'm not comfortable with, right? So if like coding p has the bitcoin and she refuses to upgrade to a quantum resistant address for whatever reason, then it's if her coins get stolen, then the onus is on her, right? Let her decide how she wants to secure her coin, or whether she wants her coins to be subject to theft or no. But against her will, pulling off a soft fork and destroying her coin because there is a potential of her coins being stolen, comes across as a very absurd idea to me. With all due respect to the developers who are proposing this, they are far more intelligent and reputed than me. But since I am open to criticizing their opinions, it comes across as a very vague argument to me. And I'm glad that there are a lot of people who are opposing this idea as well. So yeah, coding PA will is okay with it being stolen, but she will not let you forcefully destroy her coins. Like what will Bala do and what will Shreyan do?
I I also think that I also agree with Parker Lewis' statement. It's their prerogative, and the protocol should not decide on individuals' prerogative.
Right. Great. Thanks. Okay, I'm not sure. I think Shan just joined in. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I was
So
just
I mean,
following the can, so I'll just
mhm.
quickly chime in. I think the topic of discussion is that the protocol shouldn't decide if somebody wants to upgrade to a new updated address, right? Whether that's quantum resistant address. So, yeah, my initial thoughts just are it's up to the end user, the end node, that if they want to upgrade their node to the latest update, whether that's an address update or any policy update. So, yeah, node policy is not consensus. So, I think addresses do not fall part of consensus as well. Each node can decide which addresses are valid to them. I might be wrong, but I think yeah, each node can decide for themselves if they want to use that address as a valid address or not.
Right. So all four people here agree that the network should not decide whether the coins should be confiscated, burned, or be allowed to be stolen. Right. It's individuals' own possession. Let them decide how they want to secure their coins. If they do not take adequate security measures, if they refuse to upgrade to a quantum-resistant address and they end up losing their coins, it's their own will. It's their own lackadaisical approach, and they're responsible. Like nobody should take decisions for how others should secure their coins. So yeah, consensus at Bitshala at least, or at the latest in Bitcoin tech session. But let's also listen to what arguments the people who believe that the coins should be burned are saying, right? So, argument from common preference. He believes most people would prefer that their funds be destroyed rather than stolen by someone with a fast quantum computer. Especially, he argues, since thieves will be among the few privileged folks who gain early access to quantum computers, right? So maybe some people would believe that obviously if somebody's stealing, he's not going to be a saint, right? Whoever steals your coin, he's going to be a bad guy. He's going to be a malicious actor. So instead of transferring value to these malicious actors, to people who are stealing other people's coins and will abuse that monetary wealth, why not just destroy it? Instead of that wealth landing in the hands of bad actors, it's better we destroy it. So that is the argument. If I had to be the devil's advocate, that is the argument that Jameson Lopez is trying to put forward, that hey, instead of giving this money or allowing bad people to steal money, it's better that the money gets destroyed, the value gets destroyed. The second argument from common harm: many of the stolen bitcoins will be either lost coins or those that were planned to be held for long term, right? So people who are active bitcoiners, right? People who actively use bitcoins, people who have access to their private keys, obviously whoever is in a sane mind would want to upgrade to a quantum resistant address. When you know DLP has been broken, when you know a group of people have access to quantum computers, such that if they get to know your public key, they can reverse engineer your public key and gain access to your private key. In that situation, any sane individual would immediately transfer their coins to a quantum resistant address, right? So the coins that will be susceptible to theft will be primarily two types of coins. One, coins that are lost, like the owners have lost the public keys, right? So they do not have the public keys, and they do not have access to quantum computers, so they obviously cannot transfer their coins to a quantum resistant address. That will be the first type of coins that will be susceptible to these quantum thefts. The second would be coins that were planned, or those that were planned to be held long term, like people who had long term plans. Maybe they're not very active in the community, they're not following the evolution of Bitcoin tech, and they are just hodlers who have 10-year, 15-year visions, and they've bought and they've forgotten. Right. By contrast, the thieves might quickly spend their stolen bitcoins, which reduces the purchasing power of other bitcoins, similar to money supply inflation. He knows that lower purchasing power of bitcoins reduces miner income, reduces network security, and in his observation results in lower merchant acceptance of Bitcoin, right? So basically, lost coins, quote unquote, uh, increase the value of the network, right? Because you can't liquidate lost coins. Basically, you can't convert a lost bitcoin into some other cryptocurrency. You can't convert a lost bitcoin into fiat currency, right? So the value is retained. You cannot quote unquote liquidate a lost coin. You can't sell it, right? Because when people sell bitcoin for fiat currency or swap it for other cryptocurrencies, then the price of bitcoin goes down. But if a coin is lost, then the value is retained forever. And also people that hold for long term, the value is retained. On the contrary, if somebody stole those bitcoins, then they might actually spend those stolen bitcoins. Like nobody wants to keep stolen bitcoins in possession, so they might liquidate it, they might swap it for fiat currency, they might purchase objects with it, they might swap it for fiat currency, right? Thereby reducing the value of the entire network. So this will reduce the purchasing power of the entire network. He notes. Yep.
I don't think I don't buy this argument because we have time and again seen that like after all these institutional adoption and nation states coming in kind of narratives, people keep on saying that there is like most of the bitcoins are locked up with the hodlers and nobody is going to sell, and the price would immediately move. So that has been the argument for so long, but we have clearly seen that uh, as as narratives change uh, 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 and situations change, uh, people do bring a new somehow. Bitcoin finds itself into the market and it changes hands. So this idea that like if you are not uh, like if you are hodling and you are with the idea of you are with the mindset that I won't sell for like I won't use it for any price, mm, that doesn't uh, contribute to the purchasing power of Bitcoin significantly. That's what I think.
Right, and I completely agree with you. And to add to that, like you said, I don't agree with this argument. I personally don't agree with any of his arguments. All the arguments that he's made, I personally don't agree with any of those arguments. But still, it's like it's a decentralized network. Even if you disagree with people, you have to be kind of. You have to allow them to view to express their views, right? So we're just discussing his opinions, right, and trying to uh,
This Yeah, this idea like resonates immediately with people. Like most everyone who are who know that Bitcoin is of limited supply and such. But if you look at the past and how the network has evolved, this argument is somewhat weak. That's what I think.
right, true, cool. Okay, yeah, all right, but that's his argument. Like, let's just read it once again. Many of the stolen bitcoins will be either lost coins or those that were planned to be held long term. By contrast, the thieves might quickly spend their stolen bitcoins, which reduces the purchasing power of other bitcoins, similar to money supply inflation. He knows that lower purchasing power of bitcoins reduces miner income, reducing network security, and in his observation results in lower merchant acceptance of bitcoins. I think this is going to an absolute extreme. Like he has made an assumption and then he's gone to the most extreme outcome of that assumption to assume that people will steal other people's bitcoins and then they will immediately sell those bitcoins and the price will drop overnight, and once the price drops then people will stop mining and people will stop mining and they'll be because the miners secure the network, and when there are less miners, then there'll be less security. I think this is going to an absolute extreme of a hypothetical assumption. So yeah, even I don't agree. Let's see. The third one. Argument from minimal benefit, although allowing theft could be used to fund the development of quantum computing, stealing coins does not provide any direct benefit to honest participants in the Bitcoin protocol. In fact, I don't even agree that allowing theft could be used to fund the development of quantum computing. Like, why would somebody steal other people's coins and use it for quantum computing? I think what he's trying to say here is that if you know that a coin has been lost, then maybe the coin has already been lost, and if you have a quantum computer that can reverse engineer the public keys, then instead of those coins being lost and being of no value, why not just quote unquote steal those coins and use it for the development of quantum computing? But I'm not very sure if that's the best way of funding quantum computing, like like stealing other people's coins and using it for the development of quantum computing, right? You don't steal to do charity. So I personally don't agree with this argument as well. Nevertheless, that's his argument that the coins that will be stolen by people who have access to quantum computers, they will use those coins for the development of quantum computing. However, it will not benefit honest participants, and I believe that we have to put the interest of honest participants above anybody else's interest. The fourth argument is from clear deadlines. Nobody can know far in advance the date at which someone with a quantum computer can begin stealing bitcoins. But a specific date at which quantum vulnerable coins will be destroyed can be announced far in advance with perfect precision. That clear deadline will provide more incentives for users to resecure their bitcoins in time, ensuring fewer total coins are lost. So he says that, like we should have a deadline by which we expect quantum computers to be advanced enough to provably reverse engineer Bitcoin public keys, and well before that deadline, we should come up with quantum resistant digital signature schemes and ask people to send their coins to quantum resistant addresses. And in that due time, it is expected that most active users of Bitcoin will send their coins to quantum resistant addresses, and the coins that will be susceptible to quantum threat will be very few, and in that situation, since the value is very little, it will be negligible. I again personally humbly disagree with this assumption. The value might be negligible to the entire network, but definitely not to the person who loses the coin, right? So if Alice owns one Bitcoin, the value of one Bitcoin to the entire network is negligible. What's the market cap of Bitcoin right now? I don't know, 800, 900 billion, maybe somewhere around 1 trillion. So one Bitcoin, which is around 85,000 US dollars. Okay, so the value to the entire network is negligible, right? But the value of one Bitcoin to the person who owns it is very much. Maybe they own just one Bitcoin, right? So if one Bitcoin gets confiscated or burnt, it will not affect the entire network. But if somebody owns just one Bitcoin, it might be their entire life saving. And if you end up burning that one Bitcoin, might not impact the entire network, but definitely will impact that individual, right? And I mean, you're basically punishing that person for no rhyme or reason. So I don't resonate with this argument as well. Argument for miner incentives, as noted, quantum theft would likely reduce miner income. A persistent majority of hash rate can censor spending of quantum vulnerable bitcoins, which they might do even if the rest of bitcoiners prefer a different outcome. Okay, so uh, like we went through one of the arguments above where he has assumed Jameson Lop has assumed that or he assumed that if bitcoins get stolen and bitcoins get sold or they get liquidated, then the value of Bitcoin reduces. When the price of Bitcoin comes down, mining becomes less profitable, as the consequence of which less people will mine, and when the hash rate goes down, then the network will also become insecure and mining will not be profitable. So what measures can miners take to stop this from happening? Miners can identify coins that are associated with addresses that are that are quantum vulnerable, and they can censor those transactions, right? So if I'm a miner, I can censor mining quantum vulnerable transactions because I don't want thieves to get access to quantum vulnerable coins and then sell them. And if because if thieves get access to quantum vulnerable bitcoins and they sell them, then the price goes down. And the price goes down, mining becomes less profitable for me. So what will I do to preserve it? Okay, if I have adequate amount of hash rate, I will start censoring quantum vulnerable coins, right? I'll not mine those coins so that even if thieves get access to those coins, thieves cannot leverage any value out of those coins, right? So any which ways, those coins will not be used, right? Because there's no way to distinguish which quantum vulnerable coin is in possession of a thief and which quantum vulnerable Bitcoin is in possession of the entitled owner, right? If you can distinguish, if you can find out, then yes, you will censor quantum vulnerable Bitcoins that are in possession of a thief, but you will not censor quantum vulnerable Bitcoins that are in possession of an entitled owner, right? But there's no way to distinguish that in the network. So, as a blanket case, the miners will start censoring quantum resistant, quantum vulnerable bitcoins as the whole, right? So, even if you don't confiscate the coins, even if you don't burn the coins, as per this assumption, the miners are not going to mine those coins any which way. So, the people that refuse to upgrade to a quantum resistant address, their bitcoins will be rendered null and void. They will not carry any value because the miners will censor them. So, they cannot spend those bitcoins for any reason. So these are some arguments that are made by Jameson Lopp, which are discussed or enlisted from different avenues, from common preference, from common harm, from minimal benefit, from clear deadlines, from mine incentives. You might agree with some, you might disagree with some, you might agree with all, you might disagree with all. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I cannot convey this with utmost authority. I just saw a meme on social media saying that this idea is also resonated or seconded by Peter Wooler. Again, don't take my word on it. I saw a meme. Okay, maybe I misunderstood the meme. Maybe the meme was incorrect. I don't know. But I was just scrolling through a social media app and I saw a meme where you must have seen this popular meme, right? Where there are two paths. One path goes towards a castle where everything is hazy, hunky, and dory, and the other path is a dark path that takes you towards a dark haunted castle, right? And it's a very popular meme. So I just saw that meme. One side was this bright, illuminated castle with the image of Parker Lewis, and other side was this dark, haunted castle with the image of Peter Wooler. Right now, this meme obviously was made by somebody who believes that quantum theft is better than confiscating coins. Right? I again said this is an open-ended session where we are just expressing our views and we also respect differing views. Right? So, but this is a meme, maybe somebody having fun. So I just uh, I just believe that maybe Peter Wool also suggested or somebody inferred from his speech that he also believes in confiscating. However, I cannot assure you because I have not read anything on his authority per se. It's just a meme that I came across, so I thought of sharing it. But yeah, there are people from both sides, and as this argument catches more heat in the coming weeks, we'll probably see more veteran Bitcoin developers, expressing their views and a lot of back and forth. But yeah, it's fun uh, reading through the arguments of both the sides. We get to learn a lot. You get to know the other side of the coin as well. So even though we might not agree, most people here might not agree with the confiscation process, but nevertheless, it's a free and an open system, and people are free to express their opinions, whether you agree with them whether you disagree with them. For academic reasons, it's also very important to enlighten yourself with differing opinions. Okay, let me just see if there's something in chat. Nothing in chat. All right, cool. We're at 8:47. Hmm, do we have to read this? I don't think we should read the entire thing. I think we can read this. Let me just give me just a second. Yeah, this is an interesting proposal. I just read it. Okay, let's read it. I think this will be interesting. Let's explore this. Okay, so yeah, Lopp also provides several arguments against the destruction of vulnerable bitcoins, but he concludes in favor of destruction, right? The guy Boris asks whether UTXOs that are time locked beyond the upgrade deadline should also be destroyed. Lob notes existing pitfalls of long time locks and says he personally gets a bit nervous locking funds for more than a year or two. This is a nice caveat. Okay, so like UTXOs that are time locked. Okay, let's say somebody has time locked a transaction for the next 5 years, although I don't see a use case for that. But let's, for the sake of argument, let's believe that somebody has time locked a UTXO for the next 5 years. What do you do in that situation? Like because you cannot upgrade, right? That person cannot send their coins to a quantum resistant address because the UTXO has been locked. So they have no option but to be content with their UTXO being associated with a quantum vulnerable address, right? In that situation, what do you do? Because you just cannot upgrade it. So do you confiscate those coins? Do you burn those coins via soft fork before they land in the hands of a bad actor, or do you allow those coins to get stolen? Right. So all three of you, let's see what you guys have to hear. Right. If the
This
transaction is time locked, yeah.
this could also lead to potential attack vector. If a malicious party, if this is where the consensus seems to go, a malicious party could acquire Bitcoin in some way, and then probably time lock it and dump it on some sort of P2 public key address. It's quite possible. It's a attack vector. That's what I think.
Okay, right. But if somebody has already stolen a Bitcoin, then why would they send it to a P2PK address
No,
or time lock it? They can just spend it, right?
it's a non, it's a non-economical attacker, and he's not interested in the economic of Bitcoin, but he just wants to destroy
Okay,
the
okay,
network.
okay. Okay, yeah, yeah, you got it. Like a griefing attack, right? Right. Cool. Yeah. But like in a situation, a catch 22 situation, right? Either let the time lock UTXOs be associated with quantum vulnerable addresses, okay, or confiscate them. In that situation, what would you do? Like if you have a UTXO that's time locked for the next 5 years, right? And you wake up tomorrow morning and you get to know that people have access to quantum computers and they have reverse engineered DLP. What do you do in that situation? Do you sit on your quantum vulnerable address and wait for the thieves to steal it, or are you okay with a soft fork that confiscates it, and you're okay with destroying it instead of it being stolen by bad actors?
Um, I think the selfish naturally I will be interested in the soft fork that saves my coins. But if it comes to that, then I think the chain is split uh, severely.
No, your coins cannot be saved under any situation, right? Your coins are time locked. Your coins are time locked, and you cannot upgrade it, right? If your coins are time locked, you cannot send it to a quantum resistant address. So you have two options now. Either wait for the thieves to steal your coins before the time lock expires, right? If they're time locked for a long period of time, let's say 5 years, okay, and you wake up tomorrow morning and you get to know that people have access to quantum computers, right? And for the next 5 years you cannot upgrade, you cannot move your coins to a quantum resistant address. So you either allow the thieves to steal your coins within the next 5 years, or you support the soft fork that
E-
destroys your
Even
coin.
with even with the quantum computer, with the time lock, you can't do much with the private key, right? You'll have to wait for the time lock to expire.
Okay, if I am right, I think yeah. Yeah, yeah. Then how? Yeah, that's a correct point, right? Even if somebody reverse engineers your public key and finds access to your private key, right? If your UTXOs are time locked, then there is not much that they can do with it, right?
Yeah, they will also have to wait for the time lock to expire, and then they can move the coins.
Right. So then what's the point of this passage? Like the guy boss asks whether UTXOs that are time locked beyond the upgrade deadline should also be destroyed. Lock notes existing pitfalls of long term. Yeah, then it's again the same thing, right? I mean, whether they're time locked or then they're not time locked, then it doesn't make any difference, right?
Yeah,
Then it doesn't make any difference, right? Correct. So the fate is the same. If you're for it, then you're for it. If you're against it, then you're against it. Because as long as the
Yeah.
UTXOs are time locked, neither can you benefit from them, nor can somebody who stored it benefit from them. Right? Cool. Any other answers? Somebody's typing.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I read that Jameson Lobb says that he is nervous to lock his coins for more than 1 year or two, right? I think the last line in the passage. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just sharing a curious thought. It's like quantum resistance is a very like controversial and active research of active area of research, right? So and nobody really knows if Bitcoin like digital signature schemes are at threat. But yeah, even Jameson Law being like nervous even to lock it for more than a year or two, like that's very interesting.
Right. Right. Cool. I personally, I mean, I don't know what would be a use case. I mean, like, it would be a very, very bizarre use case for somebody to lock their coins for 1 or 2 years. Like, like, people have fixed deposits, right? Like, there are people who are like spendthrifts, like people who are afraid that they'll end up spending their money on something that they don't need, right? And I'm somebody who always does that. I'm a spendthrift person. At times, I end up spending my money on things that I don't really need, and later on, I repent. So yeah, some people they kind of lock their wealth in such a way that they do not have immediate access to it. So
And
maybe some people have cash and they keep it at a distant relative's house because they know if they keep it in their house, then they'll end up spending that cash on something useless and then rue it later. So they keep it at a distant relative's house, or some people lock them in FDs or whatever. So that might be a use case, like.
Yeah.
now
Also,
it- also
it's a good
it
parenting hack as well. It's like you can challenge your child to say that, hey, I'm locking this UTXO for when you turn adult or when you like go to whatever, right? Like this university, and you can challenge him that every time you do good, I will deposit some funds, but you will only have access if you are like thinking in low time horizon. It's like only when you are thinking in 5 year, 10 year, whatever time horizon, you get access to those funds. So they are there. You can always like verify that I am actually transferring those funds, but you can only access them once you are adult enough, or you once you prove that over long you have the ability to plan things over long term. Yeah, that's this use case that
Right.
right now, this is the only way you can plan inheritance without involving private key on chain. So there might be
Did you
some
say
crazy.
inheritance, Bala? Your voice is breaking. Did you say you can
Yeah,
plan inheritance?
yeah. This is the only way that you can plan an inheritance on chain without relying on any third parties. So there might be
Okay, so you
some.
send it to your spouse's address or your child's address, expecting that you'll die in 2 years. So if the doctor tells you you have only 2 years to live, then you time lock it for 2 years and then send it to your spouse's address or your child's address.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe you put some challenge. Maybe you put the seed word somewhere and then ask him to find out.
Right.
Uh,
See, then if you don't die in 2 years, then you have to be very careful. You have to cross-check the food that you're eating. You have to be wary when you're sleeping.
yeah, that's why
Yeah.
there is very poor poor mechanisms to pass to inherit to allow for inheritance on chain in Bitcoin.
Right, like the one that I mean mentioned in mastering Bitcoin, like most of us have gone, all of us have gone through mastering Bitcoin. Like you have to include probably a third party, a trustworthy third party. Like you're going to be there, the beneficiary is going to be there, and then an arbitrator is going to be there, and then it'll be two of three. So if you die, other two people can sign something like that. Yeah, you'll have to involve an intermediary as a signing party. Okay, all right, cool. So. We've discussed the problems with quantum computing. There is a solution as well. Okay, let's read through this. We're already at 8:57, so we started at 8:05. Let's wind this up in 5 minutes. Yeah, let's just read this and wind this up in 5 minutes. Securely proving UTXO ownership by revealing a SHA-256 pre-image. Martin Habostiak posted to the Bitcoin dev mailing list an idea that could allow someone to prove they control a UTXO even if ECDSA and Schnorr signatures were insecure. Example, after fast quantum computers existed. If the UTXO contained a SHA-256 commitment or other quantum resistant commitment to a pre-image that had never previously been revealed, Then a multi-step protocol for revealing that pre-image could be combined with the consensus change to prevent quantum theft. This is fundamentally the same as the previous proposal by Tim Ruffing, see newsletter number 141, which he learned is generally known as the Guy Fawkes signature scheme. It's also a variant of a scheme Adam Back invented in 2013 to improve resistance against minor censorship. In short, protocol could work like this, all right? So this is the proposal. I just went through it in brief, okay? Assuming that ECDSA and Schnorr digital signatures are the security is broken by quantum computers, right? But not SHA-256. So SHA-256 cannot be reverse engineered, right? So quantum computers are a threat to ECDSA and Schnorr signatures, right? Not to SHA-256. So let's assume that there are quantum computers that can break the security of these digital signatures, but they cannot reverse engineer SHA-256, all right? So a proposal that makes use of the security of SHA-256 to spend quantum vulnerable bitcoins. How does that happen? That will require a soft fork, okay? So let's assume Alice receives funds to an output that in some way makes a SHA-256 commitment. This can be directly a hashed output such as a P2PKH, P2SH, P2WPKH, or P2 WSH, or it can be P2TR output with a script path, right? If Alice receives multiple payments to the same output script, she must either not spend any of them until she's ready to spend all of them, definitely required for P2PKH and P2WPKH, probably also practically required for P2SH and P2WSH, or she's very careful to ensure at least one pre-image remains unrevealed by her spending, easily possible with P2TR key path versus script path spends. When Alice is ready to spend, she privately creates her spending transaction normally, but does not broadcast it. She also obtains some Bitcoin secured by quantum secure signature algorithm so that she can pay transaction fees, right? So let's say Alice has some UTXOs that are associated with these addresses, okay? And these are quantum vulnerable addresses. Now she wants to spend that UTXO. What will she do? She'll create a transaction. She'll create a transaction that spends the outputs associated with these quantum vulnerable addresses, right? But she'll not broadcast it. She will not broadcast it. What will she do? Now she'll acquire some more Bitcoin to a quantum resistant, a small amount of Bitcoin she'll acquire to a quantum resistant address, right? When Alice is ready to spend, she privately creates a spending transaction normally, but does not broadcast it, right? This spending transaction is what? It's a transaction that contains outputs associated with a quantum vulnerable address. She also obtains some Bitcoin secured by a quantum secure signature algorithm so that she can pay transaction fees, right? In a transaction spending some of the quantum secure bitcoins. Now she broadcasts the transaction that is spending the quantum secure bitcoins, right? These are like a small amount of Bitcoin, okay? This is a preliminary transaction. Okay, so she broadcasts this transaction that is quantum secure. She commits to the quantum insecure bitcoins she wants to spend and also commits to the private spending transaction without revealing it, right? So in this transaction that has quantum secure bitcoins, she commits to a pre-image. She commits to a pre-image, right? And she waits for this transaction to be deeply confirmed. After this transaction is mined and it gets deeply confirmed, okay, now the number of blocks by which it gets deeply confirmed, it keeps varying. There was some research done recently which says that now it'll probably take 2 weeks. Earlier, I mean, like all of us when we were new to Bitcoin, we kept on hearing 6 blocks, 6 blocks, 6 blocks, but things have changed now. Some researchers have showed that it is possible to do a reorg that is as far as 2 weeks, right? So, but whatever that number is, let's assume that Alice broadcasts that transaction, which has quantum secure bitcoins, and she commits to a SHA-256 output. She commits to a SHA-256 hash digest, right? And she waits for that transaction to get confirmed. Once that transaction is confirmed, then she will broadcast the quantum vulnerable bitcoins. But those quantum vulnerable bitcoins will have the pre-image of that quantum secure the pre-image of the digest that the quantum secure bitcoin has, and the nodes will only validate the transaction if the hash of the pre-image matches with the commitment in the quantum resistant transaction, right? So these are two separate transactions. The first transaction is a quantum resistant transaction, right? This will have a nominal amount of Bitcoin. Alice will broadcast this transaction. In this transaction, she'll commit to a hash digest of SHA-256 pre-image, right? And once this transaction gets confirmed, and the hash digest is known, then she will broadcast the quantum vulnerable transaction, right? And the quantum vulnerable transaction will contain that preimage. Okay, so the nodes will take that preimage, the nodes will hash that preimage, and the nodes will match it with the preimage that is in the quantum resistant transaction. And only if the preimage is known, only if the preimage is known, then the nodes will propagate that transaction, and the preimage will only be known by the actual owner of that Bitcoin transaction, right? Now, since the public key is not known, right, we are dealing with P2PKH, P2SH, P2WPKH, P2WSH, right? All of these transactions, they hash the public key, right? Until and unless you don't spend these transactions, their public key is not known. So if you have UTXOs that are associated with the P2PKH transactions or P2SH transaction or P2WPKH address or a P2WSH address, their public key is not known until and unless you don't spend that transaction, right? So Alice will create the transaction, she'll not spend it, she'll not broadcast it, she'll just create the transaction. Then she'll create a new transaction, a completely separate transaction, which will have a nominal amount of Bitcoin associated with a quantum resistant address. In that address, she will put the digest of a pre-image. She'll put the hash outcome of a pre-image. Once that quantum resistant Bitcoin gets mined, then she will broadcast the transaction which is associated with the quantum vulnerable address, and in that she'll reveal the pre-image. So the nodes will take that pre-image, the nodes will hash that pre-image, nodes will match it with the hash digest that is included in the quantum resistant transaction, and only if the hash of the pre-image matches, then the nodes will validate that transaction, and the pre-image is only known to Alice, who is the actual owner of the coins, right? So this is like a proposal made by by this developer. What's the name? Martin. Habostiak. I'm sorry if I'm not able to pronounce the last name properly, but that is a proposal. So like you don't have to necessarily upgrade to a quantum resistant address, right? You can spend your coin associated with these addresses. However, you will have to create a separate transaction with nominal amount of Bitcoin that is being spent through a quantum secure address, and in that you have to commit to this transaction, and the nodes will validate that commitment, and then they will spend the P2PK. So anybody who does not have the access to the pre-image of that commitment will not be able to spend it. So even if somebody somehow manages to gain access to your public key, they still do not have that pre-image, right? They still do not have that pre-image. So this is the proposal, and I think the entire session was usurped by quantum resistance and quantum threat, but I think it was fun. It was fun, and we obviously don't have time to cover CTV and CSFS and other stuff and the BIP containing the great consensus cleanup. But if anybody is interested and they have time, then at their own purview, as per their own discretion, they can go through it and share their learnings in the group or ask questions, and whoever is competent and available will be more than happy to answer. As far as the official session is concerned, then we were able to cover the news article pertaining quantum threat and quantum resistance. I will stop sharing my screen now. We're at 1 hour mark and done.